All right, we'll call the meeting to order. No, she's a roll call.
Dessert, here, Echo. Garcia,
Here.
Krajewski,
Here,
Rutledge,
Here.
Tornatori.
we have a quorum. We have any public comment? We sign it.
No,
Public
no
comment?
public
Any staff have any public comment? Not saying anything, okay. Chairman doesn't even have a report today, so let's go. Move on to approve our minutes from the 21st of June.
So moved. Second.
Corrections, additions. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. One procurement request, a motion for ASP 0253-22. Recommendation.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Just one. Are we doing the ordering more longer now, like over a month? Because we were doing it every day and we were getting charged like most of all the cost of finance for the AP because we got so many checks.
So the process has changed a little bit since then. So finance now has the individual departments entering our own invoices into MHC. But Christy did an exercise where she kind of like timed herself to see how long that process takes. So we still want to try to consolidate our orders as much as possible because it's very time consuming. But a lot of that responsibility is shifted to the department. So we probably, I would assume, not see as big of an invoice from
What, Jeff,
Finance.
how's Jeff allocating that now?
that. I
Good
don't,
time.
yeah, that's outside the scope
I'll
of my
ask him that.
understanding. It is
Okay.
very time consuming though.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. So I get a motion for a budget transfer. Oh, thank you. Grant made that motion. He's here. All right. Second on that one?
Second.
All right. Second on our budget transfer. Any questions, comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that motion carries. Laura, administrative update.
Yeah, so our intake has been just over about 1,400 animals this year. So I ran a couple of reports the other day. We've been trending pretty steadily with adoptions, which is, for the size shelter we are and the number of animals we see. I think July especially, we sat down and looked and we do a lot of work. And it almost feels kind of surreal, like when you look back, like really, we saw that many animals in the month of July. Or what we have noticed is our return adoptions have doubled for the same period compared to last year, which is, we're trying really hard to counsel people when they're looking at getting
So
a
that means
pet,
they
but-
adopt and then they return.
And then they return.
Oh, that's
Now,
awesome.
that number will also include even a return that maybe, doesn't mean that return is real immediate. Sometimes, like, so for example, yesterday we got a dog that we adopted in 2019. Now they returned it, so that still captures.
And what was
even-
the reasoning? What was the
In this
general
particular
reasoning?
instance, they had a child. And I guess the dynamic with the new child in the home and the dog just wasn't working. So we always take our animals back. So, and we are very clear about that when we go through the adoption contract.
That is part of the requirement is that they relinquish back to
Yeah.
you if that.
Or at least
should
have a
happen.
conversation with us, if somebody calls us and says, I can no longer keep my pet, but my sister, who I know is responsible and loves, and the dog knows my sister, we're not going to force that animal to come back into the shelter, but we're still plugging away. We've been fully staffed up in the front office, which has felt really nice. We are still hiring for 2 animal control officer positions. And we're going to be posting for a part-time vet tech position. So, but the challenge this year has also been veterinarian help. So we haven't been doing the volume of spay neuter surgeries off the vehicle that we have in prior years, just because we haven't had a steady veterinarian. We have a new one that just came on last week that we're trying out. But this has been a shortage we talked about nationwide. So
Any more thoughts on ACOs? We can't just keep them here.
yeah, so we've raised the salary. We added some language into our posting for the ACO position, willing to hire. So it kind of opened up our pool of applicants a little bit more to see if we have people that had maybe some experience in other areas that could translate over and have us train them. So once we did that, we were able to interview a lot more people. I think finishing up interviews this afternoon for that one position. For the senior position, though, we have not had candidates. So we're still strategizing.
Are you
about
asking
what
for
to
all
do.
of the resumes, or are you letting them pre-screen?
They pre-screen, but because
So you
we've
don't
opened
see
up,
what you don't see.
correct, yeah. But with us opening up some of the language with willing to hire, then it sent over a ton on the regular ACO positions. So,
Where are you posting,
so
John?
in terms of industry specific, we post on National Animal Care and Control Association. HSUS has a place, or some of the other humane animal organizations. IACA, which is the Illinois Animal Control Association. AWA, so there's a lot of like little individual groups that we try to advertise it. And then I believe it just automatically feeds into Indeed and the more mainstream platforms. Because we used to put them on ourselves, but then HR mentioned that they have a process where it feeds, I guess, into those platforms. But it's, animal control is a very specific thing that not a lot of people come out of school saying, I'm going to train to become an animal control officer. So we see people usually coming from other areas, rangers, police, other police departments, community service officers, sometimes people that just worked in sheltering in general that are interested. But so we are still hiring for those positions. We also were a couple of weekends ago on ABC talking about an initiative that's launching first week of September. It's our Chicago Dog Awareness Campaign. So we are part of a group of shelters called the Chicagoland Humane Coalition. And the committee I'm chairing, we've put together a website. We've got a $20,000 grant that our coalition received where we are spending some of that money on social ads, CTA ads. We've got some print stuff going out to build awareness around if you have a large dog, and we're calling a large breed dog any dog 40 pounds or greater. It tends to sit in the shelter longer. So it's maybe not like a very large lab, but like your mixes, your blocky head dogs. We've kind of lumped our shepherds in there. This has been the year of the shepherd. We've had a lot of shepherds come in, but we want to build awareness around the joys of adopting a large breed dog, but also preparing yourself for a large breed dog, because we see a lot of surrenders because people, find out that housing is inappropriate, or maybe they move and they can't take a dog over a certain weight with them. Maybe there's training resources they need. So this campaign launches, we did like a little pre-launch with ABC the other day, but then we'll be hitting more of the general media outlets, hopefully doing some press releases in coordination with the social media campaign that we're going to run for 2 months and all these CTA ads. And we've also got the Chicago Digital Billboard Network on board too to run these ads. So see more about that coming soon. And then the other area where we've been kind of pinched lately has been space for small animals. I was talking with a couple staff members, and small animals have really borne the brunt of the pandemic. Pet purchases, I think, the number of guinea pigs and rabbits still coming in is amazing. We're sending guinea pigs to foster. I mean, because we have no more space in the shelter. And that's with even friends, DuPage Animal Friends bought us some additional roll around cages last year. So the new building will be great, because as we're looking at those spaces, we'll have dedicated space for small animals. But yeah, we're still looking to push out, hence all the newspaper requests that went out. So thank you, you guys that brought newspapers. And that's it. Yeah, so just plugging away, trying to get through this really busy season. And then we've been having weekly meetings now with our construction team and people from the county in preparation for the new capital project.
Are you seeing a lot of the still post-pandemic return of animals? I mean, it's still ongoing?
Yeah, so when it comes to our return rates, a lot of them weren't even necessarily the pandemic pets, just
Right.
people's their financial situation has changed, which then puts them in a situation where they're moving. So the most common thing we're hearing is I'm moving and I can't take my pet with.
Okay.
Whether that is a landlord restriction or they're moving in with family that already has pets and it's just too much to bring their dog or their rabbit, whatever it might be. I think that's the most common thing that we're hearing. And usually it's not one thing, it's usually compounded with other challenges people are facing. So,
And you still have a surplus of dogs that need to be adopted?
so we have a couple long stay dogs that we're trying to, dogs that have been with us 3 months, 4 months, 6 months.
Okay.
That's not shelter's not a place for animals to stay. Fortunately, a couple of them have been in foster, but when they're taking up a foster home, that means we can't put other animals in that foster home. So we've been trying to put some marketing around this small group of long stay dogs right now.
Okay.
There's a great English bulldog named Cass who's been with us for over 6 months. And it's challenging because she's a senior. She is not a fan of other animals, so she needs to be an only. You know, so and she's a breed that can tend to have more health issues. So I think maybe that's scaring people away. Yeah. So
You mentioned you're meeting with the construction team.
yeah.
Have you guys met or attending on meeting with, say, like, All Creatures, West Suburban Humane and Hinsdale, who all had the same project manager on all their recent new buildings, just to see any pitfalls or things that they had while they were,
Yeah.
they all use the same one.
Yeah, there was
So we
quite a
got-
few
it sounds like we got
shelters.
the best one that does it. All three of those facilities are phenomenal.
So we met
Okay.
with a lot of those businesses and organizations prior to, as part of like understanding their bid. And South Suburban Humane Society is the one that we most recently finished, RWE finished, and they had their grand opening about a month ago. I haven't been out since they had the grand opening, but yeah, we've
I was just talking
talked about what were things you wish you had done differently or what were challenges you had. And to date, everybody has had very positive things to
Oh,
say
no, they all
about the
say good things
construction
about them. I
manager.
just didn't know if there was things that you still have things that come along while you're doing it. I
Yeah,
wish I would've
you know, I
told
think
them
the biggest challenge we heard was HVAC maintenance or managing that, how the zones, and a couple of the facilities said that it was more complicated than they were prepared to deal with. And we're fortunate we've got a really great facilities team. They don't have the benefit of that, you know, some of these humane societies. It's literally Carolyn walking over and trying to adjust her temperature control in the different zones. But yeah, we took notes of things that they were either having some challenges with when it came to finishes. So one example that we actually had a call last week about is in our cat or a kitten like jungle gym room. They're recommending slat wall on one wall, and then there's these modular pieces you can put on so the cats can like perch and hide and play. And at West Suburban, they're having a challenge with keeping those individual slats clean because there's just litter and hair and everything that gets into every single, and it's a whole wall full of this. So we take feedback like that. We go back to our team and we say, okay, what can we do differently
slots.
then to make it easier to clean? So we're not taking like a little brush on each row. Yeah, exactly. So, so yeah, we're doing a lot of that.
All right.
When do you think a shovel will go into the ground?
I believe spring of 23. Yeah.
And what are the challenges you anticipate? Because I know the eye on the prize is going to be wonderful
Yeah.
at the end, but during the process, it's going to be miserable. What do you?
Well, the first year, I'm hopeful, won't impact our operations as much as the second year will definitely impact us, because the idea is that we can continue operating out of our existing space while they're putting the addition on. And then we move into the addition while they renovate our existing space. And the existing space has the majority of our dog kennels, and it is where all of our surgery and medical is going to be. So that second year, we're going to have to get creative with, you know, either working with some local shelters or animal hospitals for boarding, and then really a call out for fosters. We're fortunate to have the vehicle, but I don't know how much Dr. Hannah can really operate off the vehicle with the volume of procedures she does.
Yeah.
So we'll have to come up with a plan for that second year when we're out of the existing space. That will probably be
We
the more
sorted-
painful part.
Were you here when we did the rehab of the current building?
I was around, but I wasn't as involved as Christy was. in
Because I know we had to
terms of
move to
planning.
that building that's no longer there, but then we had a lot of animals off-site,
Right.
and we told Kane not to send any of their animals for at least a few months.
Yeah, so the second year will be definitely more challenging, but no, our staff is over the decades
So
proven to be
ready.
really resilient and figure things out. So, and with enough planning, I'm not worried.
Well, there shouldn't be anything to stop the shovel in the ground in the spring. I mean, what would be?
No, we're just talking about
No, I'm
operationally.
just saying, what would be? I mean,
No,
anything.
I don't think anything. Yeah.
All right, we'll go on to our budget. Fiscal 23.
It's not working. I'm just gonna join Christy. Can you give me the meeting ID, please?
Oh, that's great.
Salad, salad.
Grant, everybody brought newspapers in here for the show.
Oh, here, I got it. Oh, you got it? Yeah.
They all went right out.
Okay.
I get a
Animal.
Sunday paper.
For
that's
the
only one I
animals.
get.
See the big, they need newspaper over there. I don't give them newspaper. I don't either. I had somebody drop them off my office. So I forget.
Yeah, I have somebody that brings me their newspapers too.
What do we do with the newspapers in the kitchen in there?
Get it right over there.
Alright.
Got that covered. It's okay.
Years ago, we got a lot more newspapers here. Every
Oh,
farm we got
yeah.
newspapers.
Years ago, there were a lot more.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
So there's hardly.
Well, now they're like,
there's
you
hardly
know,
no
6
newspapers.
pages.
It's a me, but not my screen, huh?
You'd come to every door here at the building and there'd be 5 newspapers sitting there.
Yeah.
Just go find one of those quarterhouses. They're always pulling newspapers.
Those days.
Yeah. I get 5 newspapers a day digitally, but it really takes me out that the Chicago Tribune delivers a Sunday paper. I don't want a physical paper.
I know.
Oh, see, now that's my Sunday pleasure is
Is
a
it?
real
The physical
paper. It's the
paper?
one day a week I get a real paper. Because I've read paper.
I don't want a physical paper.
Yeah, I've tried to argue with them too, Don, and they won't stop
you don't
giving it
print
to me.
Really? Is
Five
that kind of,
digital
well, they
papers.
need to do that for their advertising.
That's right, that's right. It's big ad day.
They've
Okay.
got those numbers.
So
they've got.
our FY 23 budget, so, you know, I don't have to tell this group because you're so great at supporting us, but our little shelter does quite a bit of work when it comes to public safety, public health, providing resources to pets and people in our community, and then all of our field services. So I'll get through this because you guys are both familiar with that already, but I wanted to share some information about 2021. You know, in 2020, we saw a significant decrease, mostly due to the pandemic and the amount of animals we took in. So we saw an increase in 21. Almost 2,000 animals came through our shelter, and we inched a little closer and got an 89% live release rate in 21, which is phenomenal.
Mhm.
You know, 90% is what you need to be called a no-kill shelter.
Oh.
You know, we try not to make that our focus. We try to really just make sure we're treating each animal as an individual, understanding their needs, and making sure we're doing right by not just that animal, but people, to make sure we're replacing the
I mean,
animals
how many of
safely.
the 11% are ones where people are dropping them off, they're 2 days from being euthanized, and so
Yeah.
where they euthanize us, they don't want to take them to a vet.
And that's,
I mean,
and that's a lot of
unfortunately.
the challenge, right? Because we're getting the sick ones, we're getting the ones that are not safe. Dr. Hannock offers free euthanasia for any dog deemed dangerous. You know, there's a lot of that happens too,
I
so.
can't imagine that.
Some people don't even want to pay the vet fee to euthanize us, they bring it to us.
Correct. So one of
We
the,
being an open admission, we have to take it.
yeah, one of the things, we do have a handful of vet partners that when we get a euthanasia request, if we know that person's bringing that animal in specifically for euthanasia, we have a handful of vets that have agreed to some low cost euthanasia with group cremation.
That
So-
keeps them out of your numbers too, doesn't it? Or does it?
Yeah, but most importantly, it reduces the amount of just emotional toll it takes on our team, having just
Yeah,
euthanize animals every day, you
Are
know.
the care girls still doing some of that?
Our caretaking team is primarily who does that, yeah, and it also does, you know, if you can take your pet to a veterinarian to be euthanized, then you can be with your pet at that end of life decision instead of just surrendering it to a shelter and then our team does it with compassion and respect for that pet, but it's not quite the same. So we have conversations with people about that, and try to refer them to the low-cost partners.
And then
But-
our 11% is the ones that dog that gets hit by a car that's brought into us and can't be saved.
Yeah.
That counts as being brought in.
Yeah, but, yeah, and if we have, because of friends, DuPage Animal Friends donors, there's sometimes when we're able to do that to save them, but so many of them that come in that they're just at end of life or exhibiting behaviors that are unsafe for placement. That really is what I think. We've got the low hanging fruit, right? Like Dr. Hannick can remove a leg or she can fix certain things, but when you've got quality of life issues or safety issues, that's usually where that 11% is living right now. So, but in addition to animals just physically coming into the shelter, we do a lot with providing wellness services. So I just wanted to point out that in 21, we had 687 non-shelter. So these are not actual intakes. These are our spay neuter, the majority of them through feral fixers to the vehicle, or maybe we'll do a post-adopt or post-rescue transfer procedure for somebody. We had some kittens come in the other day that after being adopted, they came back in for a health check because they were not feeling well and the family hadn't quite established a vet relationship yet, or maybe an animal's coming back for an eye inoculation. So that was 687 animals. And then we also hosted free vaccine and microchip clinics at the shelter. We did like a little drive-through.
Just doing Wednesday?
So the one on Wednesday we did was a little different, which I think we're going to do more of these. It was actually in West Chicago. We see a lot of stray animals from West Chicago. So we teamed up with their police department to host a free microchip and ID tag clinic. So we went to their public library, we set up in the parking lot, and our goal was to do 30 pets, and we exceeded that, which was phenomenal. But we actually took it off site. So these clinics we did at the shelter, but on
You
Wednesday.
bring the van out for that?
Yeah, we brought the van out because when we're back, when we're microchipping a cat, for example, we don't want to do that like out in the parking lot. So we're bringing the cat onto the van. And then it just acts as a nice backdrop too for all the other things that we're doing. We handed out collars. We had some pretty ratty leashes that needed to get replaced. We handed out a lot of resources about low cost vaccine clinics that are offered outside of us. And then also flyers went in there about our free spay neuter program, which is that voucher program you see there. So 381 vouchers were issued in 2021, and that's where they are getting everything for free. Their surgery, vaccines for that pet, microchip, all that includes, pre-surgery blood work.
Is that through pet population?
And that is through our pet population fund. And then Dr. Hannick, seeing this need for just our bully breed dogs, added some additional, just even if you're not on receiving link benefits or Social Security disability, if you've got a bully breed dog, we're going to get that dog.
Is that for
fixed at
everybody or
Neuter.
just through rescue partners?
That's for everybody. Yeah, that's for everybody.
What's considered a bully breed?
So it's where you're like American Pit
Every
Bull
pit bull mix
Terriers.
is
They're
out
like
there.
more blocky head looking dogs.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did you promote the West Chicago thing?
But that was all on social media. The West Chicago Police Department did it,
Okay.
and then we were pushing some out. The police department was worried that like they were set up hours ahead of time because they thought
Thought
the
they get
demand.
overwhelmed?
And there were people lining up 2 hours ahead of time.
Or just send out to any of the district people when it's in a.
Yeah, we'll definitely do that.
Let them know.
Sure, yeah, definitely. So for our budget, I threw some prior budget numbers up there, but you're gonna see that our budget request is significantly larger than in prior years. And this is mostly due to the capital project, but our department revenue has been trending higher each year since that initial tag increase in 2017. We are looking to see if there's fees that need to be adjusted going into 23. And we're recommending right now that our tag fees stay the same. However, we might be making some suggested changes to our owner surrender fee structure. 21 had a 67% increase in registration fees. And we've talked about this in prior meetings, but a lot of that was due to that carryover from collecting on our old collection process in 2020, and then how we changed it where vets were paying and getting invoiced up front for fees. So that's why our revenues for registration fees was so much higher. in 21, but when we look at our 2022 revenue, we are tracking slightly higher than forecasted. So we feel very comfortable increasing that for 23.
If you looked at the rabies tags, compared to other times, when we did that in 2017, we were still like middle of the road.
Yeah,
And I gotta believe that everybody around us not only probably at least raised it since then. And so we're probably not even middle of the road, we're probably at the bottom, and we haven't touched it since 17.
yeah. So we did one in 21. I haven't done one yet this for a fee
Okay.
comparison, and we were still in
Middle of the road.
line, like we're still middle of the road to a little bit higher, depending on the county that we're comparing ourselves with. One of the things we may want to talk about is some of the things we noticed in other county ordinances is a cap on the amount that the veterinarians can add for a service charge. Because we do sometimes get residents that come in and they say, well, I could buy the tag directly from you for $15, but if I get it from my vet, it's 18. And it varies. I've got some vets that charge 50 cents convenience charge, some that charge $5. And they're not, most of them are not separating that out. So it makes the tag price look much larger, like the county is taking more than we really are. So we
You go into the vet with your dog for the annual checkup and all the stuff they get. I mean, it's right now $300 and our $15 is nothing. $300 they're paying.
yeah,
And with going into the new building, I know what $1 on a tag increase equates to. How many tags we do a year?
oh, almost 100,000. Yeah,
Yeah, so I mean, $1 is 100 but when you move into that new building, you're gonna
Yeah.
have a lot more operations. And
And
we're
that might be
clearly at the low
something.
end of what we charge
yeah.
for that.
That might be something to look
Like I
at
said,
for the
that's-
next year, but I'm not making any recommendations this year for the tag prices. But we might want to do that going into the new building, depending on what our expenses look like too, so. So this 23 budget, it has a request for 2 animal transport vehicles. We were going to be replacing 1 per year, but supply chain challenges have positioned us where we have not gotten our vehicle that we budgeted for this year. So that's why you see a higher number in 23. And then we have the new building project in there. And this budget also accounts for a continuation of our annual $50,000 grant that we normally get from DuPage Animal Friends. That's an unrestricted grant that we're typically using for all of our above and beyond medical type things like our diagnostic work through IDEX. We just sent, for example, a young shepherd mix to a vet hospital to get FHO surgery, and he's got a lot of joint issues in the knees and the hips. And that's going to be a very expensive couple of procedures over the next, he's still with us right now. So, we spent about $2,000 on that surgery, but that Friends grant is what helps cover a lot of that, so. And our percentage of where money is coming from, I wanted to talk a little bit about this loan amount. So you probably noticed on the budget that you see an incoming transfer from the general fund of $4.5 million, and that's 50% of what you're seeing on that revenue line. So my plan, we had to put that in there because we haven't finished fundraising and we can't show that kind of a deficit on our budget. But in our September meeting, I'm going to be bringing forth a multi-million-dollar grant restricted for the capital campaign, which will then kind of negate having to have this loan. And there's also a payback line of just under $600,000 in our budget, which will go away as well. But for the purposes of today, because I'm expecting the check in the next week, we won't be doing this until September. So I don't anticipate having to take that $4.5 million transfer, but it is in the budget right now.
What do we
And
do at the end when we approve the final budget? We just don't have it.
What we'll do is we'll time it, right now, we have it programmed in
I mean,
until I hear from Laura that it's sealed. We will, at the last second, we'll pull it out for the 23 budget. We'll have to do a resolution to reverse it though.
oh, we do need a resolution.
Yeah,
for
it's just
Thursday.
because there's a
Okay.
resolution, but we'll take an official resolution. Although it's,
Why would you, I mean,
Well, the
we
one
don't even
thing-
approve our budget till what, the end, last meeting in November?
Laura, I need to move on to the next meeting, but
Yeah.
are we all set for Neighbor Pride?
We are, yes.
Good,
Yeah,
thank
we're
you.
happy to be participating in that.
Sorry, Chair.
Everything else is the same as prior years. the majority of our fee comes from that registration and pet population line. So
Bless you.
and then expenses, I did want to point out, we've started including the number of foster hours in our volunteer hours. So in 21, we had over 30,000 volunteer and foster hours with an independent sector value of $28.56 per hour, brings us to over $880,000 worth of support that we received from our volunteer base, which is phenomenal. We are not planning for any changes in headcount for 23 or even moving into the new building at this point. The new building will give us more appropriate spaces so that we can incorporate more volunteers into our operational plan. And then, as I mentioned too, the big bulk of that total expense line is going to be our capital project. So really our focus this year is continuing to build on the programs that we've put in place to try to help people keep their pets, help those people that can't keep them, and the shelter is the absolute last resort for them. Expanding veterinary care for our qualifying residents, doing more things like the success we had at the West Chicago Chip Clinic. Always trying to find better ways to make our rabies license compliance process more efficient. And really a lot of this is going to be that fundraising and the complete build out of our phase 2 capital project. A lot of time is going into that. Any questions?
My annual question. The fundraising, are we doing anything to reach out to the vets to get permission to reach out to their pet owners?
Yeah, so we have a newsletter that goes out to our veterinary partners, and we'll definitely be talking about the capital campaign. Once we secure, we've been in that quiet phase of fundraising. So once we get through this hopeful resolution for the multi-million-dollar grant next month, then we want to go public with the bigger part of the campaign, and we'll be including
I
vet
want to give
partners
the
in that.
speech I gave at the last one.
You want to give a speech?
When I did that, the last one about how my cat, was named after a character in Star Trek. Now that we got 2 new cats that also relates to Star Trek, so I
No, we're gonna put you
do a
on
stand
there.
up for about
Do a
20
video
minutes.
of you, Grant, asking for money for the new building.
Promote that.
How about the,
Show.
Yes, I'm working on a second donor right now too.
Hey, motion to adjourn.
So I'll probably, unless you
Come on.
want to,
Second.
unless
All
there's
in
a need
favor?
for a
Aye.
special call.